Are you sick of those damn political crusaders? The anti-libertarian party? Sick of the violence and coercion that makes up the statist servile society with seemingly no escape? Are you looking for real practical solutions to increase your personal freedom and your invulnerability to coercion? If so, kick off your shoes, come inside the polyethylene A tent, and let's talk Vonu. Join your hosts, Shane and Kyle, as they further explore this freedom strategy and develop it into the modern day. You're listening to the Vonu Podcast.
And welcome to the Vonu Podcast, the podcast making you invulnerable to coercion. I'm your host, Shane, coming to you from Acapulco, Mexico. Since governments are the primary coercers upon individuals, this podcast and everything found on the website is covered by a BIPCOT no government license, allows reuse and modification to anyone except for governments and the pledges thereof. You can learn more by visiting bipcot.org. So, since coming, I guess, let me see here, I got to redo my introduction now that we're not live on YouTube, unfortunately. So for those who are going to watch live on YouTube, unfortunately, the upload speeds weren't going to cooperate, so instead we're just going to do a pre-recorded video, and I'll actually get to do some video editing for it, and then I'll get it tossed up on FascistTube and DTube and all those other locations. So today I'm joined by John and Lily. I heard their story a couple months ago when I figured I was coming here to Acapulco. But I've been excited to meet them ever since. They are self-liberators, entrepreneurs, country shoppers, and in my opinion, nuance. There's a lot more we can learn. There's a lot that we can learn from them in our individual pursuits of Vonu. So without further ado, guys, welcome to the Vonu Podcast. It's certainly great to have you, and it's been great hanging out with you guys for the past month or so.
Well, thanks for having us on.
Thank you.
Hey, no problem. So I'm not sure how familiar my audience is with you. So I guess let's start with some introductions, and you guys can divvy it up however you want to. But I guess some introductions. Who are you, and what do you do?
I'm Lily Forrester, also Lily Divine on Steemit. I'm one half of the On the Run duo, and that's not just a catchphrase. We came here almost 3 years ago, essentially fleeing the U.S. for cannabis crimes, with the intent to make a new life here in Acapulco and see what we could do, and we've managed to do that for the most part, thanks to the dynamic city and the people that fill it. I do all sorts of things, everything from the Anarcho project we've been working on, to glass blowing, to cooking, to hanging out with my chickens.
Very good.
And I'm John of the John and Lily on the Run duo. I am currently Dreddy John Gold on Steemit. Just got on there recently, so check me out there. I've been down here helping start Anarcho. I've been doing different forms of entrepreneurship, including helping Lily start her glass factory. Doing all forms of agorism that we've done down here, helping our attempts at homesteading down here, even though it's been very different than what we were used to in the Midwest.
Right. Well, you guys certainly have a lot going on, and I guess from hearing your story in other places and also talking to you, it seems like the alternative lifestyles and the agorism started before Acapulco, though. So I guess let's go back to that point. I guess tell us a bit about your background getting into anarchism, agorism, and what led up to moving to Acapulco.
I guess the easiest jumping point would probably be when we realized we were anarchists, so I'll let Lily go first on this one.
Well, my story actually starts a lot earlier because I was raised by hippie parents that were against the government and the establishment, but in the same breath they'd also take food stamps, so there was a lot of cognitive dissonance. I went to college, I got into politics, and then I realized that politics weren't changing anything. The group that I thought was going to change the world was just really getting together a party and get sponsored to do so, and it wasn't changing anything. And in that time I became an anarchist, I dropped out of college, and one thing led to another.
For me, I had just gotten out of prison. I always had like a libertarian leanings, anti-authoritarian view of the world, but I didn't really have a strong philosophical core to that. It was more of an instinct than a real understanding of why I felt the way I did. But my whole process of going to prison set me on the fast track towards anarchy. My lawyer ended up recommending a couple good books that were important to setting me on that process. The Prince
Really?
by Machiavelli, How to Win
Wow.
Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. There's another one, but I can never remember that one. I wasn't as important to me. I don't even think they ended up letting that one through the censor or whatever, something like that. But
Very good. Very good. So I guess the anti-authoritarian bent very early on for both of you. I guess when did you impetus for, you're talking about some of your, I guess, alternative lifestyles like living in Detroit and ghettos and things like that, sparked, led you guys to decide to try out those lifestyles? What made them appealing to you?
well, like I had said, I had been just gotten out of prison, and my situation is a little unique, and I was sent to prison in the United States without ever being convicted of a crime. I've never really met anybody or heard of anybody that has had that happen to them, but I ended up doing several months in prison and being processed into the system and being treated like a prisoner the whole time, and then being called back to court and having my whole case dismissed. So I don't really know what that was all about, but the judge gave me a lecture like, you will respect my authority type of thing, and then went on a little tirade saying the worst part about my situation is the taxpayers of Oklahoma will never recover the cost of incarceration of me because I'm going to leave his state. And I was like, oh, that's a very interesting outlook on things. And it
Right.
made me realize that some people have a really warped view of the world, and maybe statism isn't actually correct. And then showed up to college and was hanging around some libertarians, and all of a sudden we're reading things like Rothbard and Atlas Shrugged, and one thing leads to another. We're no longer libertarians, and we both look at each other, presidents of organizations on campus, and we're like, well, we're anarchists. Why are we presidents?
Right.
And like I had mentioned, my life was always a little unconventional from the beginning. I was raised by quote-unquote hippies, which they were essentially what came after the hippie movement got hijacked in the 60s, which is a long story, but I was involved in like a counter way of living, so to speak, before any of this. So when it came into everything from going off the grid to growing cannabis to all of it, that shit just wasn't that much of a stretch for me, considering what I had already experienced before I was 10. So I was like, okay, there's better ways to do that, I guess.
Within a year of us becoming anarchists, we had decided to start going much more off the grid than we currently were. We had debanked around 2012. We had started living in crypto around 2011, end of 2011. In mid-2012 we debanked, and then by around 2013 we had moved off grid and were living a much more primitive lifestyle just to see if it was something we could do and what that would mean and learn those skills. We were living off of like a cheap smartphone, basic internet plan, occasional Google search at most, and keeping track of crypto price, sending crypto.
Very interesting, very interesting. So I want to talk about, it's back in 2015 when this would have been a few months after I became an anarchist, I wanted to become unbanked. I took steps towards that but never got the whole way through. But you guys have been unbanked since you said 2012 and you've been living off crypto. How difficult is it living unbanked in a foreign country? What are some of the obstacles that come with that?
I actually find it a little bit easier here than it may have been in the States. I guess that depends on like how plugged in you are to your local economy, but as a foreigner here in Mexico in particular, they have fairly lax cryptocurrency rules and a fairly supported market. So especially buying crypto is very easier if you have pesos, and if you have a Mexican friend or various other ways, it's pretty easy to get Mexican or crypto into Mexican pesos here. So
Right, and you were saying that like at the Oxxos, like at the gas stations, you can actually
you can
buy
buy
cryptocurrency.
at
That's
like
crazy.
almost every major retailer here through Bitso. You deposit money into your Bitso account and then buy on the Bitso market, and there you go.
That's pretty cool. Maybe I'm thinking with, I guess, the ease of buying and selling cryptocurrency here, maybe it would be easier to live unbanked on crypto here than in the States. In the States, without a bank account, it's hard to do anything. Like even my best alternative right now, other than decentralized exchanges, is something called VeerWalks, and it just ties directly into PayPal. Like they don't ask for a driver's license or a social security number or anything like that. And obviously it's tied to a bank account, but that's an even better solution, I think. So certainly interesting. So I guess let's get back to your guys' story a little bit. So you pursued these alternative lifestyles, you became anarchists, and you were doing stuff with cannabis, and I guess you caught word somehow that you guys were going to be charged with some victimless crimes, and you made a plan to leave, so why don't we pick it up from there?
Essentially, after our first attempt at going off grid, we realized that it was a smart move to go and do it in the city, very close to a Walmart and a Home Depot and all that. But it was probably the wrong city. We would be better off doing it in Detroit, and that's where we went to next to make another attempt at it. But in Detroit, there was actually a community of people doing very similar things to what we were doing, rather than us being the only oddballs out. So, but the neighborhood in Detroit was probably a little bit rougher than the area we were in Cleveland. It's actually one of the most notorious areas of Detroit, and a lot of rap songs and stuff about being the place to
Wow.
go to get crack and heroin and whatnot.
Wow.
Us moving to Detroit was amazing, and I miss it. It's one of the few places I miss. But us going on the run was really a series of events. We were just trying to live in peace with our use of the cannabis plant. We had the wrong things on us at the wrong time, and got fucked over and charged with a bunch of crimes, and they tried to make us out to be a flight risk and all sorts of other things.
Essentially, we got caught with a large amount of already blown trim, like of marijuana. So like when you're trimming it, there's leftover material. It's used generally in hash making and edible making and things like that. This material had already been processed for the most part, and we had that and some butane on us, and essentially that was enough for us to be charged with 5 felonies and essentially be facing possibility of 25 plus years.
And because neither of us could really afford to just pay all the money to essentially bribe the judges and to bribe the other people in power, it was basically our only defense was to leave. And so that's what we did, and we determined that Acapulco was a great starting spot.
Right. That's a lot of years. It certainly is, and it'd be expensive to fight that, and obviously in the injustice system, it's heavily weighted against you. So certainly unfortunate to hear. So you chose Acapulco, and I think what's most interesting or unique about your story is a lot of expats come here where they're semi-retired and they come here for leisure. I lost my train of thought where I was going with that. I remember. That's not good. That's not good. I know what it was. A lot of expats come here with a lot of money. You guys didn't come here with very much money when you were making the trip down here. So I guess speak to your financial situation coming down here and how little money it took you to get started here.
Well, we were flat broke before we even crossed the border, and we basically begged our way through California. It was mostly Mexicans that helped us, and a Bitcoin donation that was at the perfect time. And then we were in debt getting here because our friend helped us, and he paid for us to get here.
We had about $50 in cash when we crossed the border, but luckily we had met up with a friend in the San Diego area, and he watched us cross and followed us in his own vehicle, and the whole thing inspired him, and within a day or two, when he realized we hadn't been arrested crossing the border, he decided he was going to come down with us, and we ended up meeting up in Rocky Point or Puerto Penasquez area and driving the rest of the way together. So he ended up loaning us the rest of the money to get to Acapulco, and essentially our living expenses for the first month and a half while we got established. And we immediately started out with Agorism businesses. Lily immediately started hustling. And
I was hustling, cooking food for people every night, and that was literally to pay for our own food costs so we could afford to eat every night. And slowly it built up over time, and we were able to actually support ourselves.
we immediately started providing tourist services and plugging ourselves into the local economy and trying to provide value in any way we could.
Right, and that's another thing I want to speak to is like with your unbanking. Like I said, your unbanking situation is very unique because for me and for others, we can sell digital things online, and you can do that with crypto too. But I guess it's just makes things, I guess, a little more interesting being a foreigner
Yeah.
and having to grind and figure out how to survive.
Most
you know,
people
find
come
food.
here if they're not retired, they have an online job or they get an online job, and those online jobs require banks to be able to accept the money, or PayPal, which requires a bank. So it's like that leaves a lot of the easy money out of the question for us. So in a lot of ways, it is part of why we have to hustle, but we'd also prefer hustling than working an online job anyway. So
Sure.
If you are the type of person that's just trying to work that job and enjoy paradise, you can get an online job making $5 to $10 an hour, and that's enough money to live a really high-class lifestyle down here. It's excluded for us all that steady work because we need a bank account to be able to do stuff like that.
Sure. Yeah, but I suppose there are some advantages to that too. I think it's a more principled approach. It's something I've been working. It's just so damn hard to survive without it. I certainly think it's a more principled approach, like cutting all those ties to first from institutions, banking or whatever. So certainly I respect it. And at some point, maybe if I can get my online stuff to be mostly crypto, then maybe it'd be possible to swing it. But I don't know.
We're very glad we started taking the steps that we did before we ended up in the situation that we did, because it made us have many more choices and much easier to be able to think of the possibilities that were available to us. Whereas if we were still completely in the banking system and whatnot, it wouldn't have seemed like as much of a possibility.
when you go on the run, like, one of the things you do wonder is, like, how is it all going to work? But when you've already been unbanked and detached from that system, it's like, all right, well, I'm just gonna make Bitcoin. And our plan was to go to Detroit, make a bunch of money, buy a bunch of Bitcoin, and use that to live off of getting to Acapulco. That's not how it worked out, but that was our plan, is to have crypto.
Right. Very interesting. Very interesting. So I guess let's talk more about what you guys have done, I guess, entrepreneurially. So you've mentioned some of the, let me see here. You've mentioned some of the ones that you started, but you guys did pretty well on Steemit for some time too, right?
There's been brief periods where we've done pretty well on Steam. That's the thing, is it ebbs and flows, and there are a couple month pushes, but for the most part, Steam, it has been a lot of work to keep it at what it is.
Sure.
It's still much better than Facebook because they don't pay you anything, but don't think it's going to be easy money and you're just going to post some easy stuff and be a rich person overnight. It definitely takes some work to be even a mediocre player in the Steemit world right now.
Right. It's not summer of 2016 where anything you put up there got a bunch. That was so certainly. It's additional income. I don't know if it's necessarily reliable, but it's certainly there. So let me see here. So you guys mentioned you've done some homesteading too. Tell us a bit about what you did in the States, and then also you've got some stuff happening here that you've been testing out. So.
Well, our first major project in the States was essentially us reclaiming some land from the city that they decided to reclaim from some private owners. So they were essentially stealing land all over this area that we were living, bulldozing houses, turning it into just vacant area. And we decided that it would be a better use for at least a season to take a few of those lots and turn them into a big experimental garden. And we and it definitely inspired some people and proved, like, a bunch of the neighbors thought it wasn't even possible to grow food there, and we grew a lot of food and realized there was a lot of food to be taken advantage of in the neighborhood, like mulberry trees and old apple trees and stuff like that, and learned a lot from that experience, had a lot of fun dipping our toes and fighting the government, and lost a lot of money in that process. It was probably a expensive learning experience, but generally those are where you get the best lessons. So
Sure.
from that point we moved to the Detroit area, where we spent like 4 months preparing to farm there before the state ended up interrupting our plans, and we ended up having to change our plans to go on the run. But since getting here,
we haven't done much for gardening. Admittedly, we've had tomatoes and stuff like that, a couple good gardens, but our main homesteading venture here has been chickens and ducks, and we previously had quail, and we've got a few rabbits, and it was hard at best because we're on top of a mountain, and we didn't know what we were doing, but we still have chickens and ducks.
It's been extremely difficult to grow pretty much any plants that we're used to here. Tomatoes have done all right, but within a few months you get some crazy pest pressure on them. Other than that, it's been pretty difficult to grow anything. So we've resorted to the animals even before we were on the carnivoristic diet that we're on now.
Right. Very interesting, very interesting.
I like the chickens a lot more than I expected. I like doing all of that a lot more than I expected, but it was also a lot of work, and it's a lot people don't realize. Like, people don't consider having to break up chicken fights and chase them around the mountain and stuff. That's just not what most people think of when they're like, oh, yay, eggs! It's a lot more than eggs. There's a lot more than just planting the seeds and putting some water on them, because then ants will come and take your plant and walk away with it. It's like that. It's not easy to just kind of stick some seeds in the ground like where we're from.
Right.
Everything eats everything here, and that's not an exaggeration.
Right. So I guess for those who, because I had no idea what to expect when I came here. I knew like there was going to be beaches and such, like, and that was the obvious thing, but I wasn't really quite sure what to expect. But so you guys here are at the top of a mountain, and it's like 10 degrees cooler than it is down like in Bonneville, I'd say. Seems to be more of a breeze, and pretty far up. So I guess, let me see here. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about with in regards to homesteading or anything related to Acapulco and growing stuff? Or
Word of advice, because everybody I talk to says that they want to come here and start a farm because it grows year-round. Just remember there are bugs. Cold climates are nice for a reason.
And food is also extremely cheap here, so that really takes away your motivation to do all that hard labor when there's really high quality food abundantly available around you for like a tenth or a quarter the price you're used to paying in the States.
Right. Certainly a good point. Let's also talk about too. You mentioned the cost for food. Everything is basically cheaper here, as far as I've found out. Like I said, you guys are up here on a cliff up on the mountain with a really fantastic view of the bay and the ocean and all of that. If you guys don't mind sharing, what do you pay? There's a big room here where I guess a kitchen, and then there's the kitchen area, some storage rooms, and then I guess it's a couple bedrooms.
3-bath.
So, what are you paying to live here?
We have a 3-bedroom, 3-bath in a rural neighborhood in it's a developing neighborhood right on the edge of the city of Acapulco before you get into the suburbs. We pay about $300 a month plus electricity and water and stuff on top of that, but altogether we live here for less than $500 a month, and then add food on top of that. So,
right. Certainly doesn't take much to live here. So I guess let's go ahead and move on to the last subject here. And you guys, I think, have both alluded to it, but Acapulco. I guess this is another venture that you guys set out on, I think, last year. So tell us a bit about Acapulco and why you guys decided to start your own Freedom Festival here in Acapulco.
it was a long brewing idea for both of us. When we originally showed up here in 2016 for Acapulco, we had a great time. We loved a lot about it, but one thing that really stuck with us and rubbed us wrong, didn't sit well with us, is it felt a lot like being in college lectures and having one person in charge, and you were supposed to absorb the information rather than being an exchange. We weren't like on an equal footing as anarchists necessarily. And we thought that there might be room to grow or change that format, and at the time it just was a feeling, and over the next 2 years it developed and had other people give us feedback and stuff, and eventually formed into last year when we threw the first Acapulco.
We had two really big goals in mind when we forked. The first was to bring the anarchists back to Acapulco Bay, because that's one of the complaints we had was Acapulco left Acapulco. It went to a suburb, which is pretty close, but it's in a beautiful but isolated resort with nothing around it, and the food at the resort's pretty expensive, not much cheaper than the U.S. It's not what people think of when they come to Acapulco. It's very different. And then the other reason was we wanted to decentralize the conference structure, because we didn't necessarily like the idea as anarchists of having somebody make a list of who they thought were important as anarchists to put on a stage and have them talk. Well, we give that power back to the people who are participating and are like, if you want to speak, you have to do the work, and it'll be awesome if you do the work. But it's not up to us to schedule that. It's up to you. And it worked last year. A lot of people get put off by this idea because they all ask what we're supposed to do. Sorry. They all get put off by what we're supposed to do, but at the end of the day, you're supposed to do what you want to do. So that's what Anarcho-Forco is about.
Right. The way that I understand it is, rather than I guess a master schedule being put out, basically people, once they get their ticket, they can go onto a website and they can post an event, and then they have to promote it and get people to come there.
The events will display immediately. There's no, I have to approve it before it displays. So when you put that event up, it displays. And events can be open format. They can be parties. We encourage you to think outside the box, workshops, classes. The best things last year were the things that were interactive. It wasn't the speeches. It wasn't where you were sitting there listening to something that somebody's lectured already 30 times on YouTube.
Sure. And I think that's a really great thing. Like, I've been to Midwest Pizza Liberty Fest. I guess this will be next year will be my 5th time. I've been to Anarchon, which was very much, there was a schedule with speakers, but it was very much an anarchist festival. Nothing on the schedule happened. But I think that's certainly an interesting style. And I'm looking forward to giving it a shot.
The nice thing about a dynamic schedule is it changes constantly, and I forget where I was going with that.
With our schedule, like, we're not necessarily like having a goal of being disorganized. We hope people manage to get to a level of organization through this, but our goal is just not be able to be a corruptible element in this. Like, we don't want people that, oh, I don't like John and Lily, so they're not going to put on a good conference. It's not like that. This isn't our conference in that way. This is whoever is buying a ticket's conference in that way, and the audience is deciding what's important, what they want to listen to. It's an agora or a market of ideas in that way.
And something we found is, like, when you give the power of the schedule to the participants, they stick to the schedule way better. When you're not telling them to get out of bed to see their favorite act at 8 in the morning, they're there, and they show up on time to all the things they want to see, and there are great crowds. Like, people thought it wasn't going to work last year, but once we were in the thick of it, like, it worked like a well-oiled machine, even with the dysfunction we were having. So it's like, there can be order, it just has to be done the right way.
Right. Very good. And people can go purchase their tickets now at anarchoforco.com. You guys you're selling hotel rooms currently as well, right?
Through the Hotel Copacabana, which is where the conference is going to be held this year in general. But we also have a deal for cheaper rates. We have 3 different packages. Something to note is, for what you would spend on one Anarcho-Forco ticket, you can get an all-inclusive package with Anarcho-Forco, with the hotel room and the ticket and everything, for just about what you would spend. So it's a much cheaper option, and that all-inclusive comes with food and drinks. So that would literally be everything included, the Anarcho-Forco experience ready to go.
Right. Very good, very good. So I guess for big names, or maybe not even big names, but who's already committed to coming and putting on a workshop or presentation?
So far, some of our very impactful people are people like Larkin Rose, Amanda Rashwitz, Dan Dix, Danny Sessom, Ben Swan,
from Lieberland.
The president of Lieberland, Jit. I'm not even going to try and butcher his last name.
And then there will be Kenny and Erica from last year, which Kenny is a great example because he's part of why last year was amazing.
Kenny from Kenny's Conscious Kitchen, he was probably the most important element of making last year happen other than us, and if it wasn't for him, last year probably wouldn't have happened. Thank you a lot, Kenny, and we're glad to see you again this year.
Yes, very looking forward to that. If you're interested in what's on the schedule already, there's only 3 events, and that's just because it's what people have planned so far. There's a lot more in the works, just not on the calendar. I added a carnivore talk, so I'm going to be talking about how the carnivore diet essentially saved me. My friend is doing a talk on a decentralized app she's really passionate about, which is essentially an uncensorable Wikipedia, and she's going to do a workshop on everything about that with a fun thing at the end. And then the third thing that I'm really excited for is our friend from last year who came, who was total badass, Flynn Johnson, is doing How I Built My Dream Home Out of a Pile of Dirt. And if you look at the event on the website, that home is pretty awesome. It's definitely going to be a talk worth going to.
And
Awesome.
there's also a bunch of events that we know are happening that just haven't been put on the calendar yet because people are busy this time of year, got things going on. Like Larkin has a Candles in the Dark going on for Acapulco, but it is not yet on the calendar. You can't yet buy your tickets for it, but it is for sure happening. He's already made Facebook announcements about it, just saying he's busy. And there's plenty of other things like that. Expect to see many things in the coming days. Check the calendar constantly for updates.
Website changes constantly.
Yep.
Right. Very good, very good. And for listeners of the Vonu podcast, I'll be there. I haven't put mine up yet. I probably won't put it up for another month just because I have to figure out when I'm gonna be back, and I'm not good at planning ahead like that, so I might delay on that just a moment. It'll be some Vonu workshop. I'm not really sure yet. I've only done presentations. I haven't done a workshop, so I don't know how that could be done. But there's some way. I'm sure Henza and I can figure out some way to do a Vonu workshop. So I guess if you guys are interested in getting tickets, feel free to use my affiliate link. I'd certainly appreciate it. tinyurl.com/VonuFork. Again, tinyurl.com/VonuFork. So
It also has the coupon code Vonu, and if you use that, you get 15% off your ticket. You can use that with or without his link. So just Vonu and the coupon code.
We're forgetting to mention altogether that one of the best parts about Acapulco is its affiliate program. Once you've bought a ticket, you become an affiliate, and at that point you can sell tickets as an affiliate, and you get about 49% of every ticket you sell in crypto back to you. So it's a great way to cover your expenses or make a little money. We think it's probably our best feature of Acapulco.
you sell a few tickets, and your trip here is covered for the most part. So that's certainly awesome. And I the coupon code Vonu, very good, very good. So I guess anything else you'd like to leave the listeners with, and I guess if not, feel free to plug away where people can find your work.
Anarchaforco.com is constantly changing. It's constantly being updated with news, with new speakers, new events. That website's a tool, so use it. That's what I have to say.
We look forward to seeing all of you at Acapulco. Don't be your guys' biggest controller. Let's make this world an anarchist world. Let's not hold ourselves back.
Cheers, yeah, cheers to that. So, where can people find you on Steemit, on Fascist Book, all those places?
I'm Lily Devine on Steemit, Lily Forrester on Fascist Books, pretty easy to find me. Lily Devine on Smoke.io. We also have an Anarchaforco Steemit page. And if you want to contact us directly and you can't figure it out, still we can be contacted through the website, and we'll respond to any of our contact form submissions.
Currently, the best place to get a hold of me is Dreddy John Galt on Instagram or Steepshot/Steemit. I'm also on Facebook as John Galton.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for taking a half hour or so and telling us about your story and Acapulco and all the really awesome things that you're doing. Like I said in the beginning, as far as for potential Vonuans, I mean, I didn't come down here with much money either. Being completely honest, I've been down here for like a month and a half, and I will be by the end of it, a month and a half, and I didn't come down here with much money. So their story can really illuminate the fact that you can find freedom now. You can have freedom. Lifestyle change, and
You just have to be willing to take it.
Right. It doesn't require, as I thought, required all sorts of investment capital into a van for van nomadism. I had to wait to be free. Forget about that. Pockets of freedom in the world now, and I think there are a lot of places in Acapulco and Bonfil and surrounding areas that certainly great places to be free.
If we wouldn't have hesitated, we would have left the country with 123 Bitcoin, and we wouldn't have been on the run. Don't be like us.
That hurts. That hurts.
I can only imagine. So thank you guys so much for watching. Again, tinyurl.com/VonuFork, or just use coupon code Vonu for the discount. Make sure to subscribe here to the YouTube channel for future live streams. I wish this one could have been a live stream, but oh well, it'll go out in the same app as anyways. So VonuPodcast.com, patreon.com/Vonu if you want to support the podcast. And I think that's all we have for you today. Thanks, and we'll talk soon.
Is it possible to create pockets of freedom where personal autonomy is respected? In the novella, #Agora, Daniel LaRusso finds out the answer firsthand. After discovering Bitcoin, he becomes immersed in the cypherpunk underground. Encryption, ghost pads, temporary autonomous zones, and much more. He learns the benefits of freedom, of these tools for self-liberation, and how truly free individuals could conduct their affairs outside of the servile society. Based on real individuals in modern-day Berlin, Germany, #Agora gives you a practical representation of how freedom pioneers can carve out pockets of freedom in an otherwise enslaved world. Get your paperback copy today by visiting tinyurl.com/agoraanarchy. Again, that's tinyurl.com/agoraanarchy. And for more titles like this, please search for Liberty Under Attack Publications on Amazon.